Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. This is part of, I'm thinking about the part maybe 30 in this series. The link to that playlist will be in the description. And the last four pieces is most relevant, and there'll also be one or two other links to special episodes from this series. They'll be in the description as well, because this is, each part is their own and it's all part of a big system. But geometry, measurement, and especially the measurement of time, ancient architecture, ancient units of measure, universal geometric mathematical constants, blending in wonderfully to describe not just the pyramids but so many other, well, essentially all the sacred buildings, naology, the study of sacred edifices, for instance, and the use of these measures, proportions being very quadrivium, music, geometry, arithmetic, and astronomy being the blending in here. So previous episode examining this double vesica Pisces, which comes from the meter, which has so many exquisite connections to not just the Great Pyramid, but linking the pyramids in, again, geometric, measurable, tangible elements, and the origins of the meter, the foot, and the cubit. So, just sticking with these, so we have the double vesica dividing up the meter. We could use this exact measures and geometry will create the capstone next to the red pyramid that was in previous episodes. But now, for instance, half a meter or 25 centimeters equals 27.34% of a fathom, or 27.34% of a yard in that instance. Why are these numbers important? Well, a sidereal month. So the 30-day calendar month is based on the full moon, but there's also, that's a relationship of sun, earth, and moon. But a sidereal month is a relationship of earth, moon, and stars. So one sidereal month, you maybe would have heard of a 28-day month. Well, that's a lunar year, you could call it. So a sidereal month, which would be one orbit of the moon around the earth in relation to a star. Now that happens on average every 27.32 days. That's a sidereal month. Now, it just so happens that the rotational speed, one lunar day, one rotation of the moon is also 27.3. This synchronous orbits and rotations is not uncommon. It's actually more the norm than it is that. Now, that's why the man on the moon, as they say, always faces the Earth, because it's a synchronous orbit and rotation, which is very common. It's pretty much the normal because of tidal locking and these other forces. But so it would take 27.3 days for the moon to orbit the Earth in relation to a star, using that as our fixed point. Now, that is a sidereal month. You could call that a moon year. So for the moon to orbit the Earth, just like 1 year is one orbit of the Earth around the sun, one Earth year, well, one lunar year would be pretty much the sidereal orbit, which is on average 27.32 days, and that's also the rotational period of the moon. So it basically means that 1 moon year is equal to 1 moon day. Tidal locking, so that's why the man on the moon always faces the Earth. That in itself is not unusual. However, during this 27.3 day period, the Earth will travel through there are 13.369 sidereal months per year on average. So 1 moon day equals 1 moon year. However, during that point, the Earth will go through 27. The average sidereal month, the Earth will travel through 26.99 degrees of the solar arc. So I imagine 360 degrees defining the year, big circle around the sun. Well, one sidereal month will be on average 26.99% of that arc. However, because of elliptical orbits, just like the elliptical orbit of the Earth around the sun, the moon also has an elliptical orbit, which means that this average angle will change throughout the lunar orbit, which means, which is a beautiful connection to Kepler's three laws, which is these wonderful harmonies between time, distance, and area. So Kepler's three laws is a well-established, beautiful thing, and this actually links again time, measurement, area, distances. Yeah, it's a thing, but because of the elliptical orbit, the Earth will travel through 27.32 degrees of the solar arc, but also 27.34 degrees of the solar arc. And it just so happens that the moon is 27.3% the size of the Earth, and the barycenter, the point at which the moon actually orbits the Earth, is not at the center because of each one of them has their own mass, so they're pulling on one another, and that would be 27.3% below the surface, or 5,000 kilometers. I'll put a link to this one because this one I'll go into, like the 27.3. It's a constant built into the pyramid and so many other structures, and it's in, well, it's a very, very important set of digits, and it's just repeated so often. That was a previous episode from this series, but this again links this 27.3. And just as a, remember this 27.34%, these 27.32 is the average. However, during this period, because of the elliptical nature of things, it will be at 27.34%. Now, previous episode, so this is a sidereal month based on Earth, Moon, and stars. So previous episode, just a quick recap, using the same measurement systems and how it applies again to imperial, so feet, inches, grains, poppy seeds, etc. We saw again another example of natural time being the sidereal year. And again, very, very close. Again, but this is an average. So that, again, this number would be accurately, very, very accurate. And also the lunar year of 12 full moons. So sun, earth, moon, and stars connected not just in time, but also via distance. So just like the ratio of the size of the earth to the moon being 27.3%, the distance from the earth diameter times the sidereal will give you the distance from the earth to the moon. Measure of lengths, measure of times coming together. Okay, we also sun, earth, and moon and Rosicrucians. But now let's look at a Mason tracing board where we have these, the importance of these columns. Okay, I also put that one in there because these are not just architectural systems. It's not just the look of the column. It's also ancient measuring systems, and also applies to musical modes such as the Ionian or Ionic, or the Dorian or Doric music scales, which are the ratios between them just wonderfully connect to the measuring systems as well. And these musical modes are said to have been from the 1600s. Well, again, Pythagorean music, for instance, we find these same systems going back. And, well, okay, now Doric represents man, or a column of strength. That's that very simple column. The Ionic represents the column of wisdom linked to the woman with those curls, and the maiden or the virgin, column of beauty, Corinthian. But Doric and Ionic, most important, because we go back to the Salamis stone. And so there's a tracing, there's the original stone, which incorporates the Doric, Ionic, and the common foot, as well as the Samian. We'll get to this as well, but the allegedly modern English foot, we can find that in the Parthenon and other ancient structures, and as they're set in such a way that they convert to wonderful whole numbers, but also lovely harmonic numbers between Doric, Ionic, and the common foot. But I've mentioned that in previous videos. So just as there we see the Salamis stone, 3:2 ratio. The vesica, just like the double vesica. Yeah. Okay. Now, at 3.84 feet, that's square root of 5 Egyptian raw cubits. We'll be coming back to this as well. But we have, so the Doric foot, the Ionic foot, the allegedly modern English foot, again way back in the Salamis stone. And you also can apply it to the buildings to get lovely numbers as well. So now the Ionic is the one I'll be focusing on for the moment here. But again, as we see examples where the Doric, English, and Ionic foot are again built into the throughout the stone, through all these important, man is a measure of all things. Okay, Doric cubit as well. Now the Salamis stone. Now think of the Ionic and the Salamis stone. Well, it just so happens that half a meter, or 0.2734033325 fathom, is 27.3403325 Ionic fingers or digits. 16 fingers per inch, or 16 fingers or digits per foot, or 12 inches per foot, which is the thumb. Fingers and thumbs. Man is a measure of all things. Now also we have John Neal, and especially if you watch the Secrets in Plain Sight series, they introduce this. If you look further into the work of John Neal and John Michel, they speak about this, what they call a canonical cube, which was essentially reversed engineered by looking at structures such as Rosslyn Chapel. That would be 1.728 feet or 6/5 cubed. Now I'm going to show, because this is, I can show through the pendulums in the second and Mohenjo-Daro, the ancient Indus foot, we can actually derive this unit from there, and it'll be related to Earth-based measures, as in the pyramid is 86,400 times. Well, I'll get to that in the next episodes, because this will all link together in a measurable, tangible way. But this canonical cubit, so we'll be using the same divisions as the imperial, for instance 12 inches, 3 grains per inch, and 4 poppy seeds per grain. Well, it'll just so happen that the canonical lines, okay, a line is another word for a poppy seed, 273.403325 canonical. Ionic, canonic, the meter, the cubit, and these particular set of numbers, which is so important, natural timekeeping and natural distances of between the planets, for the relationship of the Earth to the size of the Moon, the synodic month, which is also incorporates these same systems, and more to come, because this will link ancient structures, but especially through the meter, the pendulum, the foot, which is this wonderful relationship. But you'll actually, when you look at the Ionic, Doric scales, these ancient scales as well, and the canonical via pendulums will actually link Egypt to Mohenjo-Daro through the Great Pyramid and these other structures, but also especially through Heliopolis in regards to the size of the Earth in relation to the pyramid, which is the number of seconds per day, 86,400. You can double check, triple check to your heart's content. This is measurable, and one element, one coincidence, let's call it, builds up on one another. And throughout this series, I've hundreds of these elements coming together. The onus of proof would be really now on the skeptics, because it's like, where's the data? Well, the data is here in the measures. Any science is based on weights and measures, what you can measure, what you can observe, what you can repeat, and we have the physical evidence of it as well. Where are we? Okay, now I'll also link this paper, because this is a paper by Marc Wilson Jones, who uncovered the Salamis stone. Okay, it's probably going to take, but where are we? This is on JSTOR. You can get this free to view on JSTOR, and well, I'll link that paper in there. And it's got some, again, really interesting connections between these ancient units of measure. How ancient temples, not just the Salamis stone and the Parthenon, but also in places such as Leptis Magna and this Roman Metrology, how the image of the Vitruvian Man can be found again in ancient places, how these temples will have markers built into them which show multiple sets of ancient measure, and essentially, so it's or just look like a simple bar with some lines, but the mason could come up, set his compass to that point, and then embed multiple sets of measure into these buildings. Just like Vitruvius describes the philosophy of architecture at that time was to have beautiful numbers, and the Vitruvian man is a measure of all things. And yes, so I'll link this in there as well. There's much, pendulums, meters, the English foot, the Doric, the Ionic, the canonical of a Mohenjo-Daro foot, which was also the Saxon foot, which was the English foot before the modern version. These are all blended together, and via a pendulum, via the sun, earth, moon, and stars, that's where they all come together. So, more to come. Get out your rulers, get out your compass, and make a pendulum as well. I'll do a video on that because it's timekeeping, measure systems, so obviously, clearly so important in the past, and we don't appreciate them because now it's not sexy. And again, measure, and the truth shall set you free. Cheers.